friends, we're back for the next session of the one and only Ivan. We are on page 83. Hopefully we get to read a little bit about the park so we can see Ivan and Ruby. We just left off with Bob talking about dogs having an innate and unwavering form of forgiveness, but he is a little bit different because he doesn't necessarily feel like he always forgives humans, and he has a love-hate relationship with them. If you are following along, like I said, we're on page 83, and hopefully we are going to be able to see our friends, but please remember there is a hurricane on the horizon. The art of human watching. By the time we reach the park, the sky is definitely in a bad mood. Gray clouds galloping like panicked horses, the nervous scent of rain on the way, the kind that makes you antsy in your own skin. When we near the employee entrance, I hop into Julia's backpack like always. We enter through the special gate where George shows his ID, checks in, and says hi to the staff. Pet dogs aren't allowed in the park. Foxes, wolves, my dog cousins, they are. But in my opinion, even though they're technically part of my extended family, they're nothing like dogs. Only dogs have perfected the art of human watching. The smartest thing we ever did was figure out how important the human gaze is, which is like where humans' eyes look. So often, when we follow our owner's eyes, we're rewarded with something amazing. A smelly rock, a glazed donut that's fallen on a smelly rock. We follow every blink, every sidelong gaze. We see it, whatever it is, before humans do. We understand before they do. And if there's a glazed donut involved, we eat it before they do. Puppy eyes. It's mid-morning, still pretty early. There aren't many visitors around yet. We've got a meeting in 20, George tells a couple workers, Hank and Sonia. Hi, Sonia. Who groan? Just a quick one. Going over contingency plans one last time in case there's any flooding. During the last hurricane, a small part of the park flooded, mostly near Reptile. George helped move cages. He came home smelling like cotton moths and copperheads. I did all I could not to barf. Weather Service just issued a tornado watch, Hank says. I thought we were having a hurricane, Julia says. We are, but sometimes tornadoes are spawned during hurricanes, George explains. So, there was a hurricane coming, there is, and their state or their town issued a tornado warning, meaning that with hurricanes, sometimes tornadoes can come from their extreme weather, which is really, really scary, and can make a storm go from not so bad to really, really bad. Julia frowns. But a watch means maybe. Not for sure, right? Yeah, but I want you to head home, George says, just in case. Please, Dad, just 10 minutes, Julia says. She's using the special voice she reserves for moments when she really, really wants something from parents. I think we all have that. I guess kids manipulate their moms and dads the same way dogs manipulate humans. I don't know, George begins. I promised Bob. I figure that's my cue to pop my head out and look adorable, so I do. Hey, Bob, says Hank. Sonia reaches over and scratches my ears. I'm pretty popular around the park. I give George my best puppy eyes, and he caves. 10 minutes tops, he says. Meet me back here. Puppy eyes. Works every time. Mr. Oog. Here's how I figure puppy eyes got their start. Cave humans were sitting around a fire wearing mammoth fur and grunting about how there was nothing on TV because TV hasn't been invented yet. And some willy wolf thought, whoa, they've gotten leftover mammoth meat. And he probably whimpered and cowered and did a tummy display and looked pathetic enough that Mr. Oog finally tossed him a bone. And soon enough, a few zillion years later, Viola, man's best friend. After all that time, there's the thing, like a magnetic attraction between dogs and humans. We've studied them for so long, we can read every twitch, every sigh. Suppose it was easier than chasing down mammoths. And I get it. I do. The behind-the-ears scratch, the food in a fancy bowl, the bed by the fireplace. Gotta admit that Julia's pretty fun to hang out with. And I'm grateful, really I am, that her family took me in. Still, I don't need them. You need someone. Eventually, they let you down and you end up feeling like a real doofus. So we're hearing Bob really talk about how he loves Julia and her family, but he's just saying, like, I don't need them to survive. Like, I've survived on my own. He's almost just a little too proud, and he doesn't really want to admit that he likes humans, but I think that he does. The park. As Julia walks, I sneak out of her backpack like I always do. We pass the meerkat family poking out from their den, holes like the whack-a-mole game they used to have at Max Mall. I see the flashy flamingos with their one-legged bouncing act and the terrifying, beautiful tigers. Even their cute cubs give me the willies. Families, I've noticed, take a lot of different shapes. Jim and Joe, the penguins, adopted an abandoned egg, and they are the sweetest doting parents you ever saw. I see it with humans at the parks, too. Families of all shapes and sizes and colors and genders, and yet they all seem to do just fine. We found a corner past Sea Otter Alley. Oliver and Olivia are floating calmly on their backs, holding each other's paws. It's pretty adorable, I have to admit. But me, I don't need the trouble that comes with family. Babies, puking, toddlers whining, spouses nagging. Talk about a design flaw. So there is Ivan and his girl, Julia. Walking around the park. You can kind of see the clouds building around. And he's just kind of noticing, as a dog without any bias, and without much hate in him, he's saying that any family of all shapes and sizes, genders, religions, anything is doing just fine. But he's saying at the end of the day, he doesn't necessarily need a family. So he's still being a little proud. The park's pretty big. Lots of twisty paths and fascinating smells. All the parts have names. There's the African Aviary, the Outback, Penguin Cove, Lemur Land. It's like puzzle pieces of the world. A little Africa here, a little Asia there. Dogs, you can find us pretty much everywhere. Our territory is Earth, as long as we've hooked up with humans, that is. Along the shady path, volunteer guides will answer your questions. They'll tell you about how animals used to roam one part of the world or another until things changed. Things change. That's one thing I figured out. Don't ever assume a little patch of the planet belongs to you. Things change. Boxes go flying. So he's still really hung up on his childhood where he was thrown out of the box out the window of the car. So we're starting to see that maybe Bob is a little bit resentful towards humans, which is totally warranted and totally understandable because that was such a horrible thing to happen to him. But it keeps coming up. It's something that he hasn't really dealt with or forgiven, which that's his own decision. My inner wolf. On our way, we always stop by the wolf habitat. Julia loves wolves, probably because they remind her of me. You have to look hard, maybe squint a little, but if you try, you can catch a hint of my inner wolf. It's in the eyes mostly. Also in my distinguished profile, which is like the side of his face. I dream I'm a wolf sometimes, and when I wake up, I'm panting and my fur's on alert and I'm feeling, yeah, the world could hurt me, but I could hurt the world right back, even harder. Like there's a dangerous, hard part of me chained inside, struggling to go free and just, I don't know, get even. Then I go see what's for breakfast. There's a gray wolf at the park who makes me a little jittery, which means nervous. Jittery, as in I sometimes worry he might like to eat me. His name is Kim Yu, and we struck up a conversation when a mutual acquaintance of ours, a mockingbird called Mitch, introduced us one day. Like Nutwit, Mitch likes to taunt me because I'm domesticated. Gives me a lot of grief about how free he is, soaring over the whole town. I'm not the only one who's pampered, I say one day. I mean, look at Kim Yu. He's not exactly running wild. As soon as the words were out of my mouth, I regretted them. And when I looked at Kim Yu's, I could kill you with one quick bite expression, I really regretted them. In any case, I said, moving the subject along, I've lived wild. It ain't a picnic for a dog. What was it like? Kim Yu asked. He moved closer to the edge of his domain. He had a strange odor, intense and scary, and a little bit intoxicating. Well, I was just a pup, I said, abandoned on the side of the highway. Kim Yu was listening intently. Must have been tough. All I could think of was food, water. I didn't like the catch in my voice. Owl got me. So he's starting to share his story with Kim Yu, the wolf in the park. Those guys are fierce, Kim Yu said. Can't hear them coming. I know, right? I relaxed a little. I hate owls, said Mitch. Hate them with a passion. They eat birds, you know. So do wolves, said Kim Yu, giving Mitch a meaningful look. So you were wild once? I asked Kim Yu. Never. Born and raised in captivity. Suzu over there, she was. She told us stories that could curl your fur. Honestly, it's nice to have a roof over my head. It's tough out there, man. Really tough. I suppose, said Kim Yu. I looked at him, and for the first time, wondered if I really did have any wolf in me. He was a majestic animal with teeth that could shred a tree trunk. I am also majestic, but more portable, with teeth that could mingle a pencil with enough time and effort. Hey, Bob, said Mitch, do dogs howl the way wolves do? Of course we do. So let's hear something, a duet maybe. He fluttered his wings, revealing startling patches of white. Do you know Talk to the Animals? They play that one at the carousel. Go away, Mitch, said Kim Yu, with just the right amount of menace in his voice. Come on, just a little howling. Pretend there's a moon. Pretend you're free. Pretend... Kim Yu growled, and so did I. His was pretty impressive, very deep. It spoke of death and dismemberment and all kinds of unpleasant bird nightmares. I growled too. It spoke of me being mildly peeved. Still, Mitch got the message. He disappeared, a blur of wings. Actually, I've never howled at the moon, I admitted. Me either, said Kim Yu. I'd feel kind of silly doing it here. That's where we're going to stop for today. I'm going to bookmark page 99. We're making very good progress. We read about this much of our book. We didn't get to see Ivan and Ruby yet. Maybe that will be tomorrow. But we did meet a new interesting friend, Kim Yu, who is a wolf who was actually born in captivity, which just means that he was probably born at this sanctuary in this humane zoo. And we're kind of hearing that it makes him sad, and it isn't something that he necessarily loves. He has never howled at the moon, and we know wolves love to do that in the wild. And I think that Bob is a little bit afraid of him, but I do think that they made some type of shared connection, because Bob's intrigued with Kim Yu, and Kim Yu's intrigued with Bob living in the wild. So I think we may have a new friendship forming. What do you think of Kim Yu? If you're in class, head over to the Flipgrid and answer a couple questions, and I will see you tomorrow. Fingers crossed we get to talk to Ruby and Ivan, because I miss them.